Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to talk about advanced techniques for more hip rotation. I want to talk to you today about live view golf. Now you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. Live view is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out Live View Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code. Let's talk about advanced techniques here now for more hip rotation. Now in this video, I want to talk about 3 things specifically that you should be doing to start your downswing that can help you add hip rotation. Now, we titled this advanced, okay, in capital letters, because the topics we're going to talk about are a little advanced. If this is too much information for you, no big deal. We've done a bunch of videos on hip rotation that are easier, more simple, easier to follow. Search us, search hip rotation, and check those out. If you do want some more info, if you've seen those videos, haven't put it all together, if you've gone through our rotation masterclass, which I would suggest, we'll link our rotation masterclass down below, and you want some more advanced information, that's what this is going to be about, okay? So, when you start your downswing, there's really 3 things you should do here that can increase the amount of hip rotation. There's more than 3, we're going to talk about 3. And what we're going to do is talk about each one. We're going to hit a series of shots, going to show you how to put this in. The first part is about pelvic tilt. And when I say pelvic tilt, you can have left pelvic tilt or right pelvic tilt, which just means during your downswing, you can make a downswing and have your right hip lower than your left hip, or you can have your left hip lower than your right hip, or you can have your hips level. So think about it that way. During the downswing, hips can be level, left hip lower, or right hip lower. What you want to take away from this or take home from this is that if you can keep your left hip lower in the initial parts of the downswing, that will help with rotation. Hips level wouldn't be the end of the world, but right hip too low too soon makes rotation really difficult. We'll go through that one more time. Left hip lower to start the downswing makes rotation easier. Right hip lower or left hip higher to start the downswing makes rotation harder. So think about it that way. Left hip lower and right hip higher makes rotation easier. The opposite makes it harder. So I'm going to put a little alignment rod here through my belt loops just for you to see this in space and what we're talking about. Keep in mind, the whole downswing happens really quickly. Okay, it's like there's very little time from the top on the way down. So you're really just feeling this in the initial transition. But if I put this in here, I took my normal setup, at address your hips should be relatively level, right? Not a lot of tilt. During my backswing, there's going to be some tilt. My hips don't stay perfectly level. When I go up to the top of my backswing, my left hip will be somewhat lower than my right hip, okay? Not a ton, but somewhat lower. The key is, as I start down, I want to feel that left hip stay lower as it goes around. Now it stays lower and it goes around. Notice this alignment rod here, it stays lower. See, it's pointed more down towards the ground. It stays pointed down towards the ground, but behind me. What I don't want to do is point it up towards the sky and towards the target. That would be no rotation. Pointed down and behind me. Okay, now when I do that, and we've talked about in videos in the past, I really have a sensation that my right hip stays higher. Either way, either one of those you can feel will be fine. Left hip lower to start the downswing. Now, what you want to do is start with just this. Now, you want to use live view with this. You want video feedback to see what you're actually doing and see how far you need to exaggerate. Okay, you might need to do it more than you think, and it doesn't matter what you feel. What matters is real. What matters is what you actually do, so make sure you use video feedback. So you're going to take a normal setup. We're going to start with just a short iron, maybe 100 yards, real short, 120. I'm going to do about a half backswing, and as I start my downswing, I'm going to feel that left hip lower, right hip higher as I do my rotation. I'll feel like that's the initiator of the downswing. So we're gonna start with some slow motion ones. I'll do a little couple half ones. Left hip lower, right hip higher. Just kind of rehearse that sensation there once, and then we'll go ahead and hit one. And I'm looking to retain that same sensation. I just lied right to your face. I hit that more towards 150 yards, but the point being you wanna go slower and shorter. So that's how you would practice this. You can put that loop, belt buckle loop in, and you can do some rehearsals, take your setup, go halfway back, initiate your downswing by feeling the left hip go lower and the right hip go higher. So you might feel your right hip and leg working a little more this way, your left hip and leg working more back and around you. Let's go ahead and do one more. Couple rehearsals, just getting a sensation there, and then we'll hit one. And we're feeling the same sort of pieces. And then again, you're checking the video. Did that increase my rotation or not? Do I need to do it more or less? That's one of the advanced techniques you can use. Let's talk about the second one. Okay, another important part for rotation is the pelvic tilt. And there would be posterior or anterior pelvic tilt. And what that just means, if I stood normal, I can sort of arch my lower back and tilt my pelvis up or down. So if you kind of think about where my belt buckle would be in space, I can tilt that down towards the ground, which would be like creating an arch in my lower back, sort of sticking my butt up and back. There'd be a little bit of an angle here. You feel a little pressure in your lower back. That would be anterior pelvic tilt this way. And I can also have posterior pelvic tilt, which would be belt buckle more up towards the sky, sort of butt more under. So belt buckle down, butt out, anterior pelvic tilt, belt buckle up, butt more forward, posterior pelvic tilt. Anterior pelvic tilt, when created during transition, which would be belt buckle down, butt back, in transition, can help rotation. The opposite, where you go belt buckle forward, butt under, in transition, will hurt rotation. Now, what you do at setup and backswing, we're not talking about, that's opposites here. But during the transition phase, if I go to the top or halfway back just to feel this, from here, I want to feel like my belt buckle goes more down towards the ground and I arch my lower back out. Belt buckle down, arch my lower back. That creates rotation. The opposite, belt buckle up, butt forward, which feels goofy, doesn't create rotation. Belt buckle up, butt forward, early extension, no rotation. Belt buckle down, arching my back out as I start my downswing, creates rotation. You also feel a little bit of right side bending with that. We'll get to that. So I'm gonna hit with just this now. I'm gonna make my backswing. I'm gonna feel like my belt buckle goes down and I arch my butt back out this way. And I'm gonna hit. And I'm gonna look and see how that affects my rotation. Belt buckle down, arching my butt out to start down. And I'm gonna hit some shots with that. Now, am I just gonna guess and see what that felt like? No, right? Okay, I'm gonna have my video on, I'm gonna have my live view on, and I'm gonna adjust it. Now, you can put those two together. You can go from here and feel left hip down, belt buckle down, arching my back up and this way. Now, guess what? This is advanced, okay? Again, for some of you guys that feel, oh my gosh, that's too much. Keep it simpler and do some other stuff. You can just feel your left hip ripping out. That's cool. This is advanced stuff here. Left hip stays lower, right hip higher. Belt buckle down, arching my butt out, creating anterior pelvic tilt as I start my downswing. We'll do that one more time. Down like this, belt buckle down, feeling that. We're gonna do a little half one and feel that same thing. And I'm gonna hit, and that feels good for me. So again, checking videos, seeing how that worked. That would be part number 2. I can do those at the same time. I can do those separate, no big deal. One more key move, advanced rotation, we'll talk about. All right, guys, so move number 3, technique number 3 is how your sacrum works, or the lower part of your spine, or just kind of think about the upper part of your butt, right, is fine for this. Now, where that points in space is an indicator of overall rotation. So if I took my normal setup here, the third advanced technique is where your sacrum or lower spine moves in space. Now, notice as I rotate my hips back and forth, when I close my hips, it points more to my left or towards the target. When I open my hips towards the target, it points more back towards the camera. So during the downswing, the more I open my hips, the more back my sacrum works. From straight on like this, the more I open my hips, the more back it works. The more I close my hips, the more forward. See how that moves in space? Now the point is to get this lower thing here, to get this stick in my sacrum pointed back towards the camera before you get to impact. So if you imagine like the back of your belt or your lower part of your spine, your tailbone, you want to feel your tailbone get pointed to the camera behind you before impact. And this actually should back up a little bit. Again, if you're looking for rotation, if you have too much lateral, that's a good feel to start with. So how do you do that? Again, you're gonna feel that to start your downswing. Halfway back, I'm gonna feel like this tailbone gets pointed to the camera behind me before I get to impact. I'm not gonna guess, I'm gonna put the camera on, I'm gonna actually see. So I go halfway back, rehearse that, get that tailbone back there before impact. I'm gonna go ahead and hit one. And I feel that same thing. And then once again, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna check the camera, and I'm gonna see, do I need to do more? Do I need to do less? Do I need to change the timing? I can do all three of those together. I can do just the first one, just the second one, just the third one. Whatever works for you is cool. These are all advanced techniques. One more time, halfway back. Tailbone gets pointed towards the camera before I get to impact. Let's go ahead and do one more. And then you see which one you like best. So again, more in-depth pieces here. Okay, if you've tried to do overall rotation, haven't been able to do it, you can look at these pieces. These three things will help you out overall rotation. If you haven't checked out our masterclass, again, we will link that down below. We have a full masterclass on rotation that guides you through all this step-by-step how to practice. If you guys have any questions, as always, leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, do us a favor, click the like button down below. Click the notification bell. Also, please subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.